Welcome back to Yang Daily. I'll be your host, Alex Cheney, bringing you all the Yang news you need to live your life right. Quick one today. Bet you thought I'd never get one out this early again. Joke's on you. Shout out to our Tier 3 patrons, Peter Park and Shay Meehan, as well as all our other patrons. I am grateful for every one of you. We have more new Humanity Forward endorsements. Stephen Daniel is running for U.S. House from Texas's 6th District. Bit of a tongue twister. He's an entrepreneur and works as a lawyer who represents people fighting for healthcare coverage against insurance companies. He supports reducing college tuition and prescription drug costs and preserving coverage for pre-existing conditions. Julie Oliver is running for U.S. House from Texas's 25th District. She supports Bernie's Medicare for All, the Green New Deal, closing for-profit prisons and reforming the justice system, universal broadband, breaking up big tech and agriculture, free college, democracy reforms including everything, monthly stimulus checks, and much, much more. Nancy Goroff is running for U.S. House from New York's 1st District. She has a chemistry PhD, conducts materials research for solar energy, and manages a student entrepreneurship program. Nancy supports expanding access to Medicare, advancing green energy, the climate fight, and environmental protections, monthly stimulus, and more. Check the links below to find their websites, follow their social media, learn more, and support their efforts. And you can always find a list of all Humanity Forward endorsees at HF's website, also linked in the movement links section of the podcast description. Back on the Hill, stimulus talks have come to a deadline. Pelosi has said that the White House must come to an agreement before Tuesday night for there to be any chance of getting a bill through the Senate. The continuing disagreements are over funding for state and local governments, the child tax credit, and child care programs, all of which the White House opposes. Also, Trump's attempts to exclude undocumented immigrants from the census. The population count determines both the number of seats in Congress and federal funding that each part of the country gets. No doubt Trump figures that the most undocumented immigrants live in Democrat areas and sees this as a way to weaken the Democratic Party. The last and biggest conflict is over pandemic measures such as contact tracing and testing. The White House has tried to change the language around it to make it non-committal, for example, changing the word shall to may or requirements to recommendations. Such verbiage would essentially make that portion of the bill toothless and pointless. It continues to boggle my mind how our national government fights for rather than against this pandemic. Both sides have expressed optimism that they will reach an agreement, but there is still almost no chance that it passes the Senate. An article from The Guardian sheds some light on a problem we've touched on before, tax audit inequality. It points to Humphrey, Mississippi, the county with the most tax audits, where 76% of the population is black, the median household income is $28,000, and 37% are living in poverty. This is where the IRS is looking for the most tax fraud, and it is highly representative of all the most audited counties in the U.S. Why? In short, it's easier. The IRS can audit most earned income tax credit claimants by mail in a fairly automated process, but wealthy taxpayers, whose taxes can be quite complex, are typically audited in person, requiring far more training and sometimes taking years, as they did with Trump. In the 2019 fiscal year, about 80% of individual tax audits were done by mail, but 52% of the $7 billion recovered came from in-person, meaning that the poor get audited much more often, despite the vast majority of tax fraud by value residing with the wealthy. The top 1% make up about 70% of tax fraud. And why wouldn't they, when they know that they are almost guaranteed to get away with it? The IRS Commissioner, Charles Rettig, wrote that the IRS needs more money to hire and train auditors in order to balance the number of auditors across all income levels. Between 2010 and 2017, the IRS budget was cut by about $2 billion. It is the latest in a long line of attack on the IRS, headed by members of the GOP, directed by wealthy donors. The budget cuts shifted the focus of IRS audits from high-income taxpayers to low- and middle-income EITC claimants, according to Bloomquist's research. This is just one of 1,000 ways that the rich and powerful infiltrate our politicians to make subtle changes that benefit themselves, and incidentally usually hurt the rest of us. On a happier note, you can rack up another win for UBI today. A Boston Globe article documents how the Nobel winning World Food Program is one of many agencies transitioning from handing out food to handing out cash. Quote, households that got cash instead of standard aid packages saved 60% more, consumed 32% more, and expanded productive assets like livestock by 76% more. Recipients' diets improved, and so did their kids' height, weight, and survival rates. A decade of data shows that giving people cash instead of food or other in kind aid empowers recipients, is harder to steal, and pumps money into local economies. In some settings, recipients' assets, nutrition, and even survival outcomes increased. End quote. Following suit, a food pantry in Chelsea, Massachusetts has decided to close its temporary food pantry and instead provide around 2,000 randomly selected low income residents with $200 to $400 a month for 4 months via debit card so they can buy what they need for themselves and avoid waiting in bread lines, which are vulnerable to the cold and to COVID. It will be funded by the city's pandemic relief funding, United Way, a local hospital, and other sources. This is an area in which we are seeing a trend toward UBI-like measures. UBI also made an appearance in Saturday Night Live's recent skit. It continues to penetrate the mainstream zeitgeist in correlation with its growing popularity, which is only good. Finally, Yang is back on the trail giving speeches in support of Biden and Harris this time. He also answers some questions, which, amusingly, are usually about his own campaign rather than Biden's. If you want to watch, they are all collected at the link below. And that'll do it for today's Yang Daily. Check out our new candidates, bookmark and share the audit and food bank UBI threads, help recruit other organizations to the cause and get everyone to sign the UBI petition, flood Congress and Trump with calls, tweets, and letters using the ResistBot or Income Movement easy contacts below. If you need help, consult Humanity Forward, the Income Movement Aid Database, the Mission Asset Fund, United Way, or the H3 podcast thread. And don't forget to Yang Daily.